There are a lot of things to say, and a lot of things that should be said, and a lot of things that I am sure I will say wrong. I've been sitting here trying to get my thoughts organized and figure out how to structure and communicate in a way that will bridge a gap or let someone understand a little bit more about what's going on and what's happening and why it matters to the entire world. There's a lot of things to say. And the first thing that has to be said, that I certainly can't get wrong, the most important thing in my life, is that I am a Jew. My wife is a Jew. The family around me, the community I'm in, it's full of Jews. It's a culture and it's a religion. It's a people that are scattered across the entire world, people of every ethnic background, of every color. I mean, you look at the horrendous acts that happened in Israel a week ago, and you see something like 30 countries who have people that they are mourning, who have people that have been killed and murdered and brutalized. And you ask, how did 30 different nations end up in Israel? It's because the Jews, we've been scattered and we've been split apart, and we exist in nearly every country of the world. And it's been that way for ages. I am a Jew. Now, I'm not necessarily your typical Jew. I've been wanting to make a video about this for the past 4 months. I was in Israel in a yeshiva in Jerusalem learning just about 4.5 months ago. And I wanted to film a video there, but I couldn't. And it wasn't why I was there. And over the last few months, I've wanted to talk and celebrate and share. And it's weird and maybe appropriate that this is where I get a chance to talk to my audience, to my community, to whoever will listen. I'm a convert. I've spent the last 3 years working and being a part of the community. And just about 5 months ago, maybe a little bit more, maybe 6 now, I finished a 2-year-long process to convert through an Orthodox rabbi to Judaism, becoming not only a religious Jew, but also a ethnic, cultural, a lineage of Jews. My wife is Jewish. Our children one day will be Jewish, and their children after them will be Jewish, and I'm joining a long line and a long chain of people who have worshipped and who can trace their lineage back to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob and to Moses and to Mount Sinai and to when God spoke to a nation and to a people and provided a Torah which has revolutionized the world. A moment of revelation that the vast majority of believers point at and say, God spoke there. I've been wanting to make a video about this process. I've been wanting to do it either here on this channel or on a different channel. I haven't figured out how I wanted to talk about it yet or how I wanted to share it and all the nuanced discussion and the details. And all I get to share now is that becoming a Jew is difficult, that it's long and arduous, that it takes changing your mind and changing your actions and constant learning and constant improvement, and it doesn't stop there. The Jewish people are a people of the book. There are people that have carried the Torah, that have carried language, that have carried education from generation to generation to generation, and they still do. It's a religion and a people who are constantly working to improve themselves and to develop and to bring God's will here to earth. You know, when you're a convert and you approach a rabbi to start the conversation about working through a conversion, they don't do what most religions of the world do, which is welcome you in and greet you and start talking to you about all the different tenets of the religion and the framework and how you can be a good X. Instead, they try to turn you away, and they try to discourage you, and they point at all the reasons why you shouldn't be Jewish. Why you might want to reconsider, why those that were born into it, that can't escape it, why those people might want to bear the gauntlet, and why you who are born outside, who don't have to sign up for the mitzvahs and for the consequences, who don't have to sign up for the anti-Semitism, who could escape and could live a good, decent life, why you should probably consider not being Jewish. Those were some of the initial conversations. And one of the initial anti-selling points, one of the initial points the rabbi brought to me and friends and family brought to me was the idea of anti-Semitism. That throughout history and throughout the Jewish experience, ever since the beginning, there has been a people and a tribe and a culture and a government and an army and someone knocking at your door who wants to see you dead. Not because they think you're wrong, not because you're rich or successful, smart or stupid, dirty or clean. They've used every excuse in the book to see this population, to see this community, to see this culture exterminated. The Babylonians tried it, the Romans tried it, the Germans, the Nazis, and a lot of Europe tried it. And the Arabic world, the Islamic world, has marched in the 60 short years that Israel has lived, has marched multiple times on their doorstep with the hope that they can push through and eradicate every single person there. That was their argument. Are you sure you want to be Jewish? Are you sure you want to sign up for this? Yeah. I am sure. And I wouldn't take it back for anything in the world. There's nothing more valuable. There's nothing more precious. There's nothing more important. I would convert today the same as I converted 5 months ago. Despite the fact that there's people marching in the streets in Australia, shouting and chanting "Gas the Jews." Despite the fact that this day, October the 13th, Friday the 13th, this day, schools in New York are being canceled. My synagogue is raising funds so that they can make sure they have the security they need over the next few months. A rise in anti-Semitism is spreading throughout the world, and people are taking off the mask that they wear. And it's a weird feeling. Because in a lot of ways, because I'm a convert, don't really get to make these claims. I don't get to have these emotions. Not fully. It's strange being a convert. Because in some ways you feel disconnected. I've spent this entire week watching and learning, seeing pictures and videos, reading updates every couple of hours. As if having more information will make it so that I can help. Because we all know someone who's currently on the front line, who's currently marching. Every Jew across the world knows someone. It's a very small population of people. It's a very small country. It's a very close community. It's about 70 years since the Holocaust. And I don't get to claim that history. That is a history of the people that I associate myself with. But I have friends and members of my community whose grandparents survived, whose parents were raised in a generation of people where they'd run past non-Jews on the street because they didn't know and they were scared. It's only been 70 years and the world seems to have forgotten. So why am I making this? Why am I announcing that I'm a Jew? Why am I communicating to you that I'm a convert and that I joyfully finished up the conversion about 5 months ago? If you asked me what a Jew was 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you. I would have had a classic Christian response. People in the Bible, the people that stoned and killed JC, the people who were affected by Germany, concentration camps. I would have had the same ambient understanding, but I wouldn't have really known. I didn't really have a picture. I didn't know what kosher was or what keeping Shabbat meant or really any of the Jewish holidays. I certainly didn't expect to see myself sitting here. And so in a lot of ways, I'm making this video as a way to communicate to people who aren't Jewish, to say, hey, I'm one of them. There's others that have made videos like this. Casey Neistat is probably the most prominent figure I can think of. But I'm also making this video because I feel like in a lot of ways it's necessary to take a stand, to make a statement, to make people a little bit more aware of the culture and the community and the people, to encourage you to listen to Jewish people talking about Jewish events. I have a link down below to 3 different individuals, a political pundit, a widely popular YouTuber, Casey Neistat, and a rabbi who's beloved and respected across America. And I encourage you to follow those links and to listen to people talk about their people and their history and their culture and everything that's happening to them. We were offline last Saturday, last Shabbat. Now, being offline means you don't have your phone, you don't even flick on a light switch, you're completely disconnected from anything that is creative, anything that is bringing something new into the world, building or writing or starting a fire, driving a car, anything that's sparking something. That's what Shabbat is. And so, we heard rumors on Saturday from the security guards that are at our shuls of the attack, and we didn't really have much information, and it kind of trickled out over time. And then Sunday we were offline still for a holiday called Simchas Torah, probably one of the most joyful days of the year. You see, the Jews do this weird thing where every week they open up a Torah scroll and they just read a part of it. And throughout the course of a year, every single week, every single Shabbat, over the course of 1 year, they finish reading in Hebrew in the original text with multiple people checking that the translation and the pronunciation and the dikdak or whatever it is done right and is done well and is accurate. At the end of every year, they finished reading the entire 5 books of Moses, the entire Torah scroll, and so you celebrate. It's called Simchas Torah. It's one extra day where God wants to be with you. You take the scrolls out, and you sing and you dance, and you get an aliyah, which means you come up and you recite a blessing over the Torah, and you say, thank you, God, for giving us this thing. And they read, and they celebrate, and they're joyful. And in the middle of all of that, a rabbi shouted out that we had to stop. We had to say Tehillim, Psalms. We had to recite some prayers because Israel was in danger. And the rest of this week, they've been doing that. And we came online and we saw everything that was happening. And it's not unexpected necessarily. Certainly the attack was, but the idea of the world and the countries around Israel wanting and desiring a way to wipe out, the idea of terrorism existing in the region and across the world for that matter, none of that's unexpected. And at the same time, it shouldn't be happening. It's been a week. And I've been following news reports and probably not playing as many games as I need to for my job. And there's marches across the world ranging from a reasonable degree of conversation to an incredible degree of anti-Semitism and of hate. Images of paragliders that swoop down on a field of people at a music festival and killed them and kidnapped them, as many as they could find. And I've watched as this conflict has unfolded and as people that we know and we care about are reconciling whether or not they go back to Israel, whether or not they fight or they serve or they heal or they learn or they pray. And everyone's sort of stuck in a limbo. What's going to happen next? Where do we go from here? Like I said, today's Friday. Tonight I will be going offline again for Shabbat. We always keep Shabbat. My wife will be lighting candles. I'll be going to shul. We'll be davening. We'll be saying a few extra tehillim. We'll be having a meal around a table. And the world, for me, will be quiet. And for many, many people, it'll be loud. And today, Friday, is supposed to be a jihad. And police forces and communities around the world are adding security guards and canceling schools. Because the reality of something else happening today is high. As I'm filming this video at 4 a.m. on Friday, already there's a flood of people marching to the borders of Israel, supporting and celebrating and reveling in the fact that Israel has been weakened, that Jews have died. We've seen this history repeat itself time and time again. Like I said, we've seen it with the Babylonian Empire. We've seen it with Rome. We've seen it with the German Empire. And now we've seen it with the Islamic world. I think the strongest argument, in my opinion, that I've heard, it just paints a picture of the fighting that's happening on each side right now, and the death, and the pain. If Hamas put down their weapons, if the terrorists gave up, gave in, there would be peace in the Middle East. If the Jews put down their weapons, now, or any time in the history, if the Jews put down what protects them, which is not just guns and rockets defense system, but also Torah and prayer and God. If the Jews put those things down, every single Jew in Israel would be slaughtered in the next day. Probably take too long. The week, the month. This is not a multi-sided argument. Terrorism is not a nuanced discussion. It's been 70 years since half the world did their very best to exterminate and succeeded in exterminating and destroying the vast majority of the Jewish population. No one thought we'd be here. The Romans didn't. The Babylonians didn't. The Germans didn't. Hitler didn't. And we are. And we will be. So, I'm a Jew, and proud to be one, and thrilled that over the last few years I've been able to join this community and this people and this faith. I will be a Jew tomorrow. I will be a Jew every day until I die. So if you've watched to this point, there's 3 videos linked down below that I think you should go check out. People who are born and raised and have an identity as Jewish. Some that are religious, some that are less religious, Orthodox, non-Orthodox, a range of people. There's a rabbi called Rabbi Manis Friedman talking about Israel's response to the war, what a humanitarian war looks like. Talks about the necessity of war, and of a quick war, and of an uncompromising war. There's a video from Ben Shapiro, an American political pundit, but he's not talking about politics. He's talking about being a Jew. And there's a video by Neistat, probably one of the most prominent YouTubers in the history of the platform, sharing who he is and how he relates and what all of this means to him. There's a lot of things you can do. You can pray. If you're a Jew, you can do an extra mitzvah. I need to be better at that myself. If you're just invested and you care, you can pay attention, you can help, you can donate, you can write letters, you can listen, and if you know someone in your community that is Jewish, you can reach out and lend them an ear and show them your support. Because whether or not they admit it, what's happening in the world right now brings out a lot of memories. And it's terrifying to see people, your average day person, march down the street, who normally you'd respect and shake hands with and play games with. And there's a crowd of them, thousands and thousands, chanting, "Gas the Jews," as if it's never happened, or it's a rhetorical phrase of speech, or a metaphor for the type of world they want to live in, where the Jews just, There's a lot of things to say. And a lot of things I don't know how to say. And a lot of things I am sure the comment section will dictate that I have said wrong. But at least I've said something. We'll see you next week. Have a good Shabbat.